Okay. Alright. Franchise is still not really finished off animated styles, and we're just gonna reboot it already. Okay, well, you know what? We've done fan casts a little too soon, really, after animated properties before. There is no reason to believe they would ever go near this for a live action reboot, but that's never stopped us, so we're just going to get right into it. By the way, guys, if you want to continue voting on polls for what should be the next fancast on the channel, there's a big old join button down there, and in the community post for members only, I post polls at least like 4 or 5 times a week now. I try to, for different things, for what they want to see on stream, for what they want to see in fancasts, for what they want to see in the tier list streams, etc. So, if you're able to join the channel and would like to support further, that is how you do that. But for today, we're casting Despicable Me. So, Gru is basically... Yeah, he's a complex character, and here's why. Because he is this villainous character. And he's got to come off like he could actually be this villain. As much as it is a kid's film, so he doesn't really need to all that much. But he does need to come off as diabolical. He also needs to come off very well as this much gentler father figure. And he needs to do everything in between on the way there. And I'm going to keep this quite simple. I'm going to cast Bryan Cranston. Yes! Because Bryan Cranston... I mean, look at Heisenberg. Firstly, in Heisenberg, he proved that he could look good bald. Secondly, with that role, he was essentially this good, gentle dad character who slowly and progressively got more and more evil. So, Gru is just reverse Heisenberg, really. And also, before that, and after that, Bryan Cranston has done a lot of amazing comedic roles. This is a comedy at the heart of it. He's also this evil guy slowly turning good through the love and care of these children. But that's what he is. And Bryan Cranston comes off as a great dad character, a great comedy character, a great leading man. A lot of the people I considered for this role don't come off as great leading men in a live-action version of this. Cranston does. Dr. Nefario is then his assistant sidekick man thing. He's got so many minions as sidekicks, but he needs another one. That's how useless minions are. Anyway, don't bag on me for hating on the minions. So Dr. Nefario is... I mean, he's old, and he's sciencey, and he's kind of mean, because he likes doing the evil and wants to continue doing that. He's not the person who convinces Gru in the end that the family and the children are the most important thing. He's the opposite of that, actually. So, you've got to keep that in mind while casting him, that it's not actually this nice old guy, not at all. He's meant to be funny, to some degree, but he's also meant to be a dick. So I'm going to cast John Malkovich, because John Malkovich can be very, very funny. Oh yeah, very, very funny roles. He's done tons of them. He's so funny. He also comes off a lot of the time like a dick. And he's definitely typecast as these characters who are mostly dicks. And that's all the role is. And I just think he would add something fun to that into a live-action adaptation of this without needing more screen time, because I don't feel like you're going to give more screen time to Dr. Nefario in a live-action remake. Now, the children themselves are difficult to cast, as children often are for me. This is like my 88th fancast on the channel, and 1 in every 2 I have to fancast children, and it gets hard, because children are hard to cast without getting really repetitive about it. For Margot, look, honestly, in the first film she was probably 12. Let's pretend she's 14, which means we could maybe cast a young-looking 18-year-old actor. You just need 3 very distinct tiers of child actor. So I'm basically going to cast someone who is like 18 and hope that it's okay that they're playing like 14, 15 still. Because they generally are. 18-year-old actors still are playing 14, 15-year-olds generally. Sometimes 23-year-old actors are still playing 15-year-olds. It's really weird. So I'm going to cast Jenna Ortega. Because she's done this role. The role of being this older sibling who is adopted, who doesn't really care for the parents, who wants to protect the younger kids while also not enjoying what's going on. She's done this before. It's a similar kind of role to a few different things. And she's great, and she's been in a lot of stuff. She's got a lot of experience at being this sassy, talkbacky kind of child, which Margot is to a degree. I'd say Edith is even more so in her own way, but Margot is the one who kind of tries to stand up to Gru and reprimands him for not taking care of the younger ones. And Jenna Ortega would do that really well. Edith then, and here's the thing, you're casting Margot to play something around 14 years old. but we cast an 18-year-old. And this is how it works in Hollywood. So then, to cast someone who we want playing a 10 or 11-year-old, we're going to cast a 14-year-old. It's an awkward, confusing process. But basically, I'm going to cast McKenna Grace. And this is genius, and yet so simple. It's basic, don't get me wrong. Everybody, oh, we need a child actor, let's cast McKenna Grace. She's done so much. She's one of the busiest child actors in the world. You will never find a 14-year-old with as much experience in acting already as McKenna Grace. Incredible. She played the young version of any woman character there is. She was the young Sabrina, she was the young Captain Marvel. She'll do anything, anybody, any white woman she'll play the young version of. But I'm casting her more specifically because having this experience is very useful, especially for Edith, because she is such a sassy, strange, really confident young girl. And I wouldn't like the idea of casting a less experienced young actress in that role. McKenna Grace has got the kind of experience in playing these confident kid roles to play that really, really well. And Hagness. Hagness is probably in the first film meant to be 4? I don't know. We're going to try and assume that she's like at least 7 or 8, maybe 6. Maybe you could get away with 6. But much like the previous rules, we cast an 18-year-old to play a 14-year-old, we cast a 14-year-old to play a 10-year-old. To cast like a 6 or 7-year-old, we're going to cast a 10 and 11. She might be 11-year-old. We're going to cast Brooklynn Prince. It's another basic casting. But I mean, sometimes with these child roles, there's not much you can do. There are the kids who are known, and there are the kids that are not known, which is the majority of children actors out there. And you can use some random kid there, or you can just say, hey, this kid could do this really well. It's a big film. The kids have big amount of screen time, all of them. You want kids who are experienced to do this. And Brooklynn Prince has done a lot of roles already. She's delightful in everything I've seen her in. She comes off... That's it. That's Agnes's whole character. She's delightful. She wants this unicorn. It's adorable. She gets upset at it. It's so funny and cute and adorable. Everything she does is cute and adorable. The whole film, it's meant to be just cute and adorable. Cute and adorable. And Hagness, Brooklynn Prince can do that. Casting the less happy characters. Villain, yeah, somewhat. But you look at Vector and you say, is he the villain of the piece? Sure. Does he ever feel threatening or mean? No. What happened to the old days when we had like Frollo and Hunchback of Notre Dame was the villain of the piece, huh? Evil Witch and Snow White. Terrifying children villains. Scarred me for life. Vector isn't going to scar anybody for life. Anyway, the thing about Vector is you probably want to cast him a little bit younger than I have, but I think you can get away with it because Bryan Cranston is 65, which is crazy to me. It doesn't look it. And you don't have to have him playing a Gru that is 65 years old, especially if you want to do a sequel with Lucy, who's definitely not much older than like 30. But we're not worrying about that. The thing is, you just need Vector to be a lot younger than him. I'm going to cast Simon Helberg because, duh. For so many years in The Big Bang Theory before he settled down and became the really boring character. He was the man-child character who really couldn't grow up and really acted in a lot of ways like Vector. Exactly like Vector. Pretty much just exactly Vector. Yep, that's pretty much him, down to a T. And yes, he's maybe like 40 now. But if you shave the beard he's got, he'll still look 25. He still looks really young without it. Mr. Perkins, then, is the actually intimidating one, yet he's got like 3 minutes of screen time. He's the big, giant guy who is behind the desk and refuses to give Gru money so he can give it to his own son. Is the evil bank an actual corporation? Because surely that nepotism's going to get him caught out at some point. It doesn't matter. So I want to cast Vincent D'Onofrio. That's just another easy typecasting, really, but he is fantastic at the roles where it's this big, huge, terrifying, imposing guy, villain. He's really good at those roles. Kingpin and Daredevil. Really, really good at that role. Shockingly, unbelievably good at that role. Kingpin should not be somebody that any real-life person should be able to look and come off as so well, but he did that so well. And similarly, nobody actually looks like Mr. Perkins in real life, I hope. But Vincent D'Onofrio is the closest you could come to having that presence in a live-action version. Miss Hattie is the person at the orphanage who... She's not important. I'm going to cast Imelda Staunton. Umbridge. Miss Hattie's not as mean as Umbridge, but she comes off as this person who the children want to get away from. And when Imelda Staunton puts on the umbrage-ness, you want to get away from her. Marlena is Gru's mother, and she never plays a huge role, but she is always very comedic anytime she's on screen. Horribly cruel, but very comedic. And quite simply, again, there's just another obvious answer here. There's an obvious answer to most of these. I want to cast Emma Thompson, because it's just me that does this, but I have severely typecast Emma Thompson as really good and funny at playing these kind of foreign European mother roles. I've cast her as that a couple of times because of her role in Last Christmas, where she did that so well. Not an overly memorable film, but she was memorable in it for me, for some reason. I mean, she's hilarious in everything she's in. She's great. And yet Julie Andrews, a treasure of the UK in acting terms, playing Marlena in the animated films. So I think a similar treasure level would be something like Emma Thompson, who'd be great at that. Finally, the Minions. This is super basic, again, casting. But for that many Minions doing that much body capture and CGI work, whatever you want for them, and that many different voices that are at the same time kind of similar, I think it's just easiest to just cast Andy Serkis. He's just the person you can cast where you don't have to worry about casting someone separate for the bodywork and for the voice. He could do it all. He will do it all for you. Would they want him to, or would they just CGI the Minions? I don't know. I don't like the idea of the Minions in live action. I don't see it working that well. I think it looks dumb. I think it looks dumb no matter what you do with them. I'm not sure if they'd include them in live action. They couldn't not, though. If they did this in live action, they'd have to, but I don't see it working that well. But Andy Serkis playing some version of these insane little guys running about helping, but not really helping, is comedic gold. Doesn't matter how weirdly CGI'd and fucked up they look. And that is all for this one, folks. Please do subscribe down below. You can join the channel and check out all those member polls, including voting for the next fan cast. But you can suggest whatever fan cast you want down there, and they might get into the poll, but how will you make sure they win unless you join? You can't. Also, let me know what else you want to say in the channel. It's a variety channel. It's a real variety channel. You can suggest anything, and it's got a chance of happening. Subscribe.